Hello everyone, Caren Glasser here, and welcome to this episode of The Passion Point. This is the show where we follow Passionistas from around the world, finding out what their passion is and how they actually make a living doing what they love. And today I am excited about our guest. We welcome Jennifer Grant to our show. She has a passion for serving and supporting others, to recognize and embrace that they are indeed truly amazing. This love of life and passion for purpose led her to start her own business, inspiring Radiance, and she now travels locally, nationally as a speaker, writer, and coach, sharing the messages, lead with love, and your life is your choice, to name a few. Jen's diverse background includes working as an outreach coordinator for a top nonprofit organization, real estate, direct sales, and criminal justice. Okay, Jennifer, we're going to have to talk about the criminal justice thing. This is something I didn't know about you. She even worked at an all-male maximum security prison. Oh my goodness, okay? More information we need to know. And she is changing her life for the better. Jen uses her experiences and lessons to support others to do the same. When she's not supporting others, you might find her walking in nature, reading, practicing yoga, or strapping on her helmet for a motorcycle ride. Her first book, Dying to Be Good Enough, is due out later this year. And so without another word, I'd like to welcome Jen Grant into our interview. How are you today, Jennifer?
Hi, Caren. I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Well, I am, if possible, even more excited to have you here with us. I'm excited about your book project. We're going to be talking about that. I do want to kind of digress as well about maximum security and the whole jail thing and how you got involved with that. That's pretty wild. But first, we're going to start our interview by the way I started every single time, and that is to define the word passion. Now, according to Webster's dictionary, passion is an intense, driving, or overmastering feeling or conviction. What do you think passion is?
When you were saying that, the first thing that came to mind is it's like the fire within. I feel like it's the fire within us that keeps us going. So when you read that definition, I went, yes, that's exactly what it is. For me, it's that fire inside that keeps me grounded and focused forward where I'm meant to go.
So let's just get to it right now. Where did you discover your passion? I mean, you've been on this journey for a while. Let's take you back. Let's take you back to when you were a little bit younger or way younger. How did this journey start? Did you start out one day wanting to write a book called Dying to Be Good Enough? I don't think so. So tell us where you started and how you ended up on this journey and where you are today.
Sure. The bulk of the story, I would say, starts about 5 years ago. But it wouldn't be fair if I said all of it started 5 years ago, because I remember, and maybe you remember, maybe our audience remembers, that picture of that little girl. I think she had blonde little pigtails, praying against her bed with her head face down on the bed, and she was praying. That used to be me literally when I was little. I remember being the little girl praying, going, what is it I'm meant to do? So there's always been this knowing that there's been something in there. And the answer had always been, I want to help people, but I didn't know what that meant. So through a series of a variety of events, including a maximum security prison, it was about 5 years ago where that journey really unfolded after a specific personal development weekend, when I realized that the helping other people meant I had to embrace myself first.
So how difficult was that? I mean, you know, we talk about coming into our own radiance and our own brilliance and stepping into our own power, and here you are realizing you have to do that. What did that look like to you?
It was a mess, and it took me a long time. I was 32 years old, and for the first 32 years of my life, I had believed what I think society teaches us, and for me it was, I'm not good enough, people don't like me, so why even bother? And those first 32 years, I had gathered enough experiences to feel like I had proved my point. See, I'm not good enough, so why even bother? And then at this event, it was actually literally a board-breaking experience where I broke through a board, and then AKA busting through your limiting belief, where I finally went, wait a minute, if my board can break, maybe there's something more to this. And it was at that pivotal moment where life started to change in a really big way, because for the first time in my life, I had allowed myself to believe that, wait, maybe I am good enough. And then from there, the journey began.
Do you feel that that's a pretty common stream of thought that a lot of people have? I'm not good enough?
Absolutely. Now I can answer absolutely yes. Prior to this, I would have said there's no way other people think the way I think. I thought for sure I was the only one, which of course, as you know, I'm sure is common. That's a very common thing. We always think that we're alone in that thought. But the past 5 years have proved absolutely, I've not met a person yet that doesn't carry some sort of I'm not good enough in their mind somewhere. Even if it's small, even if we've gotten past it and healed a lot of it, we all carry it somewhere.
So what was the next step then on your journey as you realized, you had these limiting beliefs? I'm not good enough. You do this personal development, and now it's 5 years. Now you're working now towards now. What was your next step? How did you take that next step, and how did you know it was the right step to take?
After that seminar, I decided that I was going to give myself a 3-month experiment. And what I was going to do is basically, if changing my mind about myself and changing the choices about how I felt about me, if that could really make a difference, I would find out over the next 3 months. And I tell people within 2 months I quit the experiment because life had already completely changed. And so that's when I decided I'm going to start helping other people. I had no idea what it felt like or what it looked like or what that meant. I just knew that I had to share this message with others. So the journey has not been a very straight road. It's been bumps and bruises and twists and turns, but it's been perfect because I just keep following this, those little nudges that we get. What's the next step going to be? And that's how I got here today. So it started with individual people, which led to groups, which led to speaking. Once I realized that, wait a minute, this really is a collective belief that we all hold, I knew I needed to get the message out in a bigger way, and that's what brought me to the book.
And so now you're writing this book, or the book is basically written. I know it's in editing right now, and it's about to be released and launched. Very, very exciting. How was that? How did that feel, getting all these thoughts and feelings out into writing, and basically it's your memoir, it's your story? How did that happen? Was it scary? Was it easy? Did it just like fall out of your mouth, or did we have to pull it out of you, till you could get your message?
Well, I think like anything that's meant to be, it's easy once you sit down to do it or actually feel like you have something to share. Then it just comes out. But it was getting to the point of setting aside the time, believing that I have something to offer, and everything that I teach and talk about is already out there. It's not that the message is anything new. It's just my story, and my personal story is built into it as well. So was it scary? Yeah, it was scary as hell. It still is, knowing it's going to be out there soon. That's a little bit or a lot vulnerable, but very exciting too, because it's been something that for the last 2 to 3 years people have been asking me for.
So, a question that I always like to ask, because you mentioned the word vulnerable, and I think that is something that we as women, and I'm sure men too, but I can only speak for myself as a woman, and I'd like to get your take on this. The idea of being vulnerable, that in itself is scary. To me personally, that in itself is scary, and that's been the biggest change personally that I've made in my life in the past 5 or 6 years, is allowing myself to be vulnerable. How does that feel to you, to be vulnerable?
Being vulnerable for me there's always that trepidation beforehand, before you release something, before you write something that you know is probably going to touch nerves, before you have a conversation, whatever it is. There's always a little bit of trepidation, but for me, if I'm not being vulnerable, I know I'm not giving everything I can. And I know that it's my responsibility now in order to do that. I see myself as someone who is leading the vulnerability pack, because what I've learned is that when I do that, then other women and men can feel permission to feel the same. it automatically gives people a, hey, me too. And if no one is out there doing, hey, me too, then we're just sitting back here wondering, how alone are we? So I keep looking at it that way, and whenever I put something out there that's vulnerable, it's not about me and what I'm sharing, it's about serving other people so that they recognize, hey, you're not alone.
So how has that changed your life now that you've stepped into your brilliance, but not just that, your vulnerability? What has changed now for you now that you've done this?
I think it goes without saying, anytime we talk to people that are willing to be a little bit more vulnerable, you know that their career expands or opportunities expand or connections, things that become available to them expand. And I would imagine, Caren, for you, you've seen that too. As you said, you've been doing that more over the last 5 or 6 years. Things just expand in a bigger way because people resonate with that. We're at a time right now where people want that vulnerability. They want authenticity and candid and from the heart. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, we need to be sharing that. And for me, it's opening up incredible opportunities.
So I have to assume now that you're on this path and you're writing this book and you have become vulnerable and you do a lot of speaking engagements, I know, and you've touched a lot of lives. What do you say to somebody who shows up on your journey with you and says, I've lost my passion. I don't know what to do next. I'm lost. What do you tell them? Or do you tell them? What do you direct them?
One of the first things I would do is, depending on how much time we have, we'll say, but one of the first things that I would do is remind them how to get connected to their feelings. Because we're never lost. We always have an inner GPS that can guide us, but oftentimes we get disconnected or we fall away from that, not believing that we really have that within. So I would remind them how to get connected with that.
Let me stop you for 1 minute then. So is there an exercise that you actually can suggest to our listeners just to give a takeaway right now? What would be one way to get more in touch with your feelings?
So close down your eyes and go through 2 processes. You would start by feeling love. So close your eyes and feel, what does love feel like? What does joy feel like? Think of a time when you felt that, when you felt love, when you felt joy, happiness, when you felt alive and vibrant and passionate. Get connected to that feeling. That feeling is your truth. So have that, make a couple notes of it, remember what that feels like, and then do it again, close your eyes, and feel the fear side of it. Feel maybe sad, angry, hurt, disappointed. When is a time you felt guilty about something? And feel how different that feels. And you'll feel literally the shift in emotion and feeling and connection in your body. When we're following a path of light and love and passion and brilliance, it feels good. So I always encourage, start there. Remind yourself what that feels like, and then go back to, what did you love to do as a kid? What lit you up as a child, or what can you do now where you lose yourself for hours? Reconnect to some of those things, because often we can find that passion within those moments.
Great, great, great answers. So as we continue along now, so we're on this journey, and you're finding your passion. So somebody comes to you now and says, okay, now what? I mean, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I got laid off from my job, or I don't have a job, never had a job, or I got fired, or there's no work out there. How do you help people, or do you help people, figure out what their next step is?
That depends on, I think that depends on a couple different circumstances. First, of course, we have to make sure we have food and shelter and those necessities. So let's assume that those things are covered and they're in a position to be able to follow this more, which of course I know that not everyone is. So if they're in a position to follow it more and guide into that, I would tell them exactly what I did for myself, which is just take the next step. Too often we get caught up in having to figure out, well, how is it going to unfold? You don't need to know the how, and most people get lost there. They say, well, I have to know the how before I move forward. No, let go of the how, find out why you want this, and then trust that the next step will unfold. For a person that maybe isn't in a position to say, hey, I've got all the time in the world, let's say we have someone who is working 40 hours a week, and maybe they feel like they're in a dead-end job, but they want some more of that passion. They've found something that lights them up. Then I would encourage them to how can you add that in your life even 5 or 10 or 15 minutes a day? So maybe it's not something full-time you can pursue right now, but how can you even just start adding it in? And that can be a variety of ways. Of course, that gets back to them connecting with what lights them up and making that commitment to just add it in a few minutes every day, and that will start leading them closer. Again, they don't need the how, but get connected to that why.
And we're taught that, find your why, the rest will follow. And how do you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're told, is it Martin Luther King Jr. who says you don't need the whole staircase to take the first step? Right. I think is a quote by him. And that's the same thing. We don't need all the answers. Caren, I could have never told you 5 years ago that I would be talking to you right now based on this journey unfolding. I have no idea what's going to be happening in the next 5 years, but I know that the perfect thing I'm meant to do right this moment is be speaking with you and sharing more about the book and my journey. And however that unfolds is perfect because I'm attached to the why, and my why is spreading that message because I believe it's important for people to know this. So what is the why that you want, and that how will keep unfolding.
Exactly. And I mean, even our relationship and our connection goes back a couple of years. We met in Minneapolis at an event that we were doing out there, and you were one of our attendees sitting in the audience, and if I remember correctly, you were just out of something, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but you were coming to us as an attendee, but you had a lot of things that were going on, and that's when we first met. And here we are, fast forward a couple years later, 2.5 years later, and we are connected in multiple ways now because sometimes you just have to be and let it happen and just let it unfold, as you are saying, the way it's supposed to fold. How do you feel about that?
I completely agree. I've thought about that recently, in fact, as well. I was just coming out of something. I was coming out of a divorce and a major life transition, a divorce and finding a new home and all sorts of things going on. So at the time, I wasn't in a position to work together or move forward in certain areas, but again, just keep stepping where I can. And now 2.5 short years later, and here we are. And even in those 2.5 years, life has changed dramatically for me. Not because you don't allow yourself to get bogged down in that stuff. Life will continue happening, but as long as you're still connected to what that why is, the path really will continue unfolding.
Absolutely. So one of the questions that I like to ask my guests on the show is, if you could spread passion dust anywhere in the world, on anyone in the world, who would you spread it on, and what would you hope to accomplish?
Oh, that is such a beautiful question. I think that might be my favorite, passion dust. So my passion dust would be called Lead with Love Passion Dust. And I would sprinkle it on, I'm going to pick 2 groups of people because they're my favorite to talk to. First, I would sprinkle it on women that are 35, 40, 45, 50, 60, and they're in some sort of transition. Oftentimes this is when maybe their children are leaving the house and they're stepping back going, now what? Now who am I without these labels? So I would sprinkle it on them so that she starts to realize and remember, hey, honey, you're amazing. Not because you're a mom, not because of your kids, not because of anything, but because you're born. So she would be one person that I would definitely sprinkle that on. And then my second group are young women. So think high school girls. And I would sprinkle it on them because I think of what my life might be like if I believed even myself a little bit worthy as a high schooler, how different it might be. Not that I have regrets. I don't regret the path that I've taken. It's brought me where I am. But giving young women that little boost of, honey, it's okay. You'll have challenges, yes, but ultimately you're a gift. And ultimately you're amazing and you have something incredible to offer.
That is beautiful. That's beautiful. I don't know if you know this about me. I love quotes. And in social media, I love to put up quotes. Some of them are very, very funny. Some of them are thought-provoking. Some of them I probably shouldn't put up. But I put up things that strike a chord with me either early in the morning or late at night that it makes me think. And so today's quote that I'd like to share with you, and then if you have a quote that you'd like to share with me, I'll give you that opportunity right afterwards. So today's quote comes from Aldous Huxley from Brave New World, and he writes, "I want to know what passion is. I want to feel something strongly." What do you think about that quote?
I love that. I love that. One of my dreams and my visions, my great hopes is that everyone can feel a little bit of that passion. Imagine a space, imagine a world where we're all lit up from within. That to me would just be incredible. So I love that quote. I'll have to make sure I get that one from you. Yeah, that's a beautiful quote. Can I share 2 quotes with you?
Share as many quotes as you want. This is all about you.
Well, I'll give you 2 then. A quote that I have on my email, and it's always in my mind, is of course Mahatma Gandhi's quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And I lead myself forward with that. I see that every single day. I make sure I look at it every single day so that I remind myself to step back and step into that place. Who is it that I want to become, and how do I want to do that? How do I want to support that change and growth going forward? And then the second one, Marianne Williamson, Our Deepest Fear. And it's quite long. I won't give you all of it. So look that up, Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. But she talks about our deepest fear is not that we are powerful. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And it's so telling and so incredible to me. The words, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And that goes back to what we were talking about with vulnerability too. It's letting that light shine, and as we do, we remind others that they're also that light, and they also have that to shine. So that would be my other favorite quote.
Well, I like both of them, and thank you so much for sharing them. I want to talk a little bit about your book because it's about to be launched like any day.
Yeah.
And it's called Dying to Be Good Enough. Can you give us just a little idea of what this is about? And in the description below, they're going to be able to see how they can go get a copy. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and how it came about?
So, Dying to Be Good Enough, and then my subtitle is A Journey of Acceptance and Discovering Ultimate Love. So growing up, I had always, as I said, I was always kind of a seeker, looking for what it is I meant to do. Meanwhile, parallel along that journey, I had always run into moments or obstacles, people telling me things that had reminded me, you're not good enough. So I remember growing up always trying to be good enough. I had always wanted to hear these words from anybody that I talked to, and my mom and my dad and siblings and friends and family and anyone that I talked to, I'd long to be good enough for them. So that was always part of the journey. So this book is part journey, part stories, part my experience, built in with these lessons that for the past 5 years I've been putting into place in my own life and sharing with other people. Mm-hmm. So it's Dying to Be Good Enough, a journey of acceptance and discovering ultimate love, because as we know, life really is a journey. Where I am today is not where I'll be in 10 years from now, and where I was 10 years ago is not where I am today. So it's always a journey. And that ultimate love is, for me, it's the love that I can give myself, because I feel like that is the hardest love for us to offer. It's easy to love our children, it's easy to love our friends, it's easy to love our family and other people, but it's the hardest to love ourselves, I believe, fully and completely. So this book is all about my story and lessons that I share with other people along this amazing journey we call life.
I love that, and I know that people are going to be able to, go to Amazon. They're going to be able to go to bookstores and order your book. I mean, it's going to be available all over, and they can also go to your website, I know, to find out more information. What is your website that we can let our listeners know?
Sure. The website is inspiringradiance.com. So you can find me there. You can also go to Facebook. I love people finding me on Facebook, so reach out to me on there. Also, Facebook, Inspiring Radiance. And email me directly. All of my contact information is on my website, and I'm the type of person, And maybe this will change in 5 years if I'm too busy, but I'm the type of person, I love connecting with people individually. So if someone emails me, they're going to get an email response from me. I don't have any little bots in the background handling things, so personal connection is perfect for me.
I love that. Any last thoughts that you want to share with our listeners before we finish up our show today? I'm just so fascinated by your journey, and just because I've been a part of it for even a short few years, I'm so excited to see where you're going and where you will be, and who knows where you're going to be in 10 years, quite frankly, as you said. I mean, you just don't know, but I love the fact that you are fearless and that you are just perpetually moving forward, which is an awesome thing, and I think a great message for our listeners. So any last thoughts or messages that you would like to share with us?
Oh my goodness, there's so many things I could say, but I think the thing that I would say that would say to anyone if given the chance is know that you're a gift. Know that you're here for a purpose. Know that you matter and your voice counts, and it's up to you to decide to make that choice, to live from that place.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Jen, for being on the show with us today. I so appreciate you, and I just appreciate your time and taking time out of your business day to be with us. And I want to thank our listeners, because we know you have lots and lots and lots of choices as to where you spend your time, and we are so appreciative that you've chosen to spend your time with us today. And so, as we always say at the end of each show, we can't wait to see you next time on the next episode of The Passion Point. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.